we're playing Thief. This episode, we're playing Thief.
Yes.
Thief Gold, that is, which is the edited, modded sort of version or patched version of Thief the Dark Project, which was the original Thief.
Very good. I did not hear you traverse the room.
The first thing that I'd like to do, right, is talk about, because we played different releases of the game. I played the one on Good Old Games. I played the one on Steam. So I will start this by saying that mine worked perfectly fine, except for two small issues. I tried changing the resolution and the game crashed. It kept crashing, it wouldn't let me do it, but then eventually I did it. So that was which is very minor. So that was one thing that didn't quite work for me. And then the second thing, I lost about 3 or 4 cutscenes.
Oh, wow.
About 4 missions, cutscene just didn't play. It just skipped the cutscene and went straight from one mission to the next.
Okay, that's interesting.
But you have sent me a message describing things that didn't quite work on your version, but I didn't want to read it. So
well,
why don't you talk me through it?
I have a small confession to make for starters. Is
All
that
right.
after about mission 4, I switched to GOG because I was like, "Fuck this shit, man!" Like, basically, the problem, the great thing about GOG is that they often do edit the game, or the way the system works, basically to make it work on modern systems, right?
Yes.
And I don't know, because they've got resolutions there that, like, when you play the Steam version, it's got only 640 by 480 or 800 by 600.
Yeah.
That's it, right? And so there's a 4:3 resolutions, and those are quite standard for the late 90s as well. They're basically Super VGA resolutions, right? But in the GOG version, you got all the resolutions, including ultra wide, which is insane, right? Like, which is absolutely bonkers. The other thing is there were no cutscenes in the Steam version at all. So none. I didn't realize until about the second mission in there was supposed to be cutscenes, because I looking up some info on it, right? And I was like, oh shit! You just saw it just sort of blipped, and then it was like straight into the mission. But even despite that, but they also don't do, and this is a very forgivable, which is no cloud saving, right? That's, I mean, obviously,
on
you know,
Steam,
you don't expect it on Steam, but you don't expect them to do cloud saving, right? And I looked up the history of cloud saving because I remember before, and I think it turns out it was around 2008 that cloud savings first started coming in, and it was only for like Valve games. Obviously, it's like Half-Life 2 and a couple of others, like they cloud save stuff. Now, like most things cloud save, but obviously if you want to cloud save an older game, you've got to go into the game's code, probably. You've got to go into the source. You've got to basically hook into wherever the saves folder is, because that's what happens, and then use that to upload to the cloud. Like, that's basically what I think they're doing in GOG, is they're just going, there's the saves folder, we know where it is, hook it into the cloud, because on GOG you get cloud saves, and that was really important for me because sometimes I would play at work. There was also like occasionally it just wouldn't render the screen properly. It would render half the screen and the rest would sort of flicker. This is usually going to full screen mode, and I think you get a lot of problems like this with full screen in older games. They just don't understand how to handle the modern resolution, or they don't understand how to handle Windows 10. So it was like night and day, the different versions of it. Steam. I mean, it was kind of crazy.
The time is ripe for a bit of burglary. The front gate of Lord Bafford's manor is always guarded, and the main street is far too exposed. But Cuddy tells me there's a better way in, around to the side, more out of the way. One guard, and likely no witnesses to complicate matters. The piece Cuddy wants is a scepter. Silver, jewels, the usual adornments. It should command a high price. Bafford, like most of his kind, probably keeps his fingers on the top.
So, I guess what I want to do is sort of go mission by mission, and I wanna discuss the experience that we had with the game and with the missions, because I think I have some very strong opinions about some of the missions, and I know you do as well. So, mission 1, which is called Lord Baford's Manor.
Mhm.
So I'll go first. So for those of you who are listening and you have not played Thief, the game has a normal difficulty, hard difficulty, and expert. And let
Yeah.
me tell you, when they say it's normal and not easy, they mean it's normal. It's not easy. And where I'm coming is when I play games, and especially older games like that, I do want to mess about to a certain extent and kind of push the game a little bit. And so I went into this thinking, you know what would be funny? It would be really funny if I try to be a fucking Rambo and to just
Yeah.
try and slaughter everything. And this really doesn't work in this game, because probably my first 7 minutes of actually gameplay post the tutorial mission is just me dying repeatedly, because I try to just barge head first into encounters and just get annihilated.
So but do you play many stealth games or sneak?
No.
I'm the more like, because I know what, like, I play a lot of stealth
Yeah.
games. I quite like them. So I'm actually naturally much more cautious, but it just this means it takes me in ages to finish the level. But what I do and have been doing, like trying to push myself to do actually in these games, is like, look, if I want to know where to go or like what to do, just try running through first, right? Just like run through. I knew I wasn't going to be able to like combat, like take on the enemies in combat, but just try running through, so then you know where the thing is that you need to get to, and then reload whatever, and then you know where you're going, and then you just sneak through. Even that was actually quite difficult, I found.
Yes.
But I actually think that it's a testament to the game itself, because you can't do that. You know, that's what it's designed for. So it's a testament to the game design of Thief that you can't just run in, right? Because if you could, I don't think it would have been rated as well as it did, especially at the time when people weren't used to that game.
Yeah. No, and eventually I had to switch to being sneaky. First level, the game kind of gives you a choice. You could try and go through the front door of the manor, which is heavily guarded, or you go around. So I went around, and you go through the sewer, and then you come into like a basement area. In that basement area was the first moment where I went, oh, actually, I didn't expect the game be this good, because so there's the section in the basement where you go into a room, and then when you leave the room you go into a corridor, and the corridor is patrolled, and so
Yeah,
you kind of have to wait and sneak around or take them out silently. But the room has like this small windows into the corridor, and I was like, oh, that's cool. The game kind of tells me, look, you can look through the window, you'll see where the AI is. And so I was waiting for the patrol guards to kind of come by and then turn around. And as they turn around, I was thinking, hold on a second, can they see me through this window? And immediately I learned the answer to that question, which is yes, they can, and they absolutely will see you. And I was like, oh, holy fuck, this is quite, I didn't expect that from, game from 98 or whatever. And then immediately the guard is running towards me, and we're separated by a few barrels, and he just gets stuck. Like, he couldn't find around the barrels. And I was like, all right, game.
Yeah.
You tried very hard, but all right. So yeah, that was probably the most eventful section. And then, even though I knew that the game wants me to be a thief and sneak around, reminiscing on the first few levels, I was still basically fighting everyone.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't really, I was sort of sneaking, but then I wasn't too good at it. And then half the time I would actually engage and fight.
Help! Don't let him...
Which is interesting because the melee is very clunky.
Did you
So-
understand, for example, that like a blackjack will one hit knock them out if they're not
Yes.
unaware of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you get the backstabbing with the sword? If you hit them with a sword while they're unaware, you'll insta kill them.
No.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. And it doesn't have to be Constantine's sword. It's the base.
I did not pick up
Yeah.
on that. And this is because, right, when they run away from you, they will run away from you, because when you have a sword in your hand, you move slower, which I thought was actually quite clever of the game to have that mechanic in.
Yes.
So
I
if
like that.
someone tries to run away from me, I just take the bow, shoot them in their back.
Did you also understand with the stealth mechanics? Did you also understand that if you have your sword drawn or a bow drawn, you will be more visible to enemies?
No, I did not pick up on that.
Yeah. So, but because your sword, the idea is your sword glints in
Yeah.
the darkness,
That's
and your
clever.
bow glints like the arrow glints, whatever. It's not a huge amount, but it's like it can be enough depending on the situation.
How did you get on with the first mission? Was there anything that you
The first mission was kind of fine, I think. Like I've probably played that mission a few times before, but like a long time ago, and maybe once I've played it before. It's because it's so early, like in the realm of both 3D and stealth games, right? That you just gotta be you gotta be gentle with it,
Yeah.
right? But I was impressed by a bunch of stuff. Like mechanics wise, I'd forgotten actually that there was leaning in it as well, which I was kind of impressed by, because that's also not something that I'd forgotten about that they had in. It was one of the first games to use light and shadow to hide you, which is I'm actually not sure how they did it. I think they must have had like, because obviously all the lighting's baked, right? But they had like pre bits of collision or something, or lighting that creates like a collision box, something, where a trigger box where they're just like, oh, now you're in light or now you're in shadow or something. There's probably some other techniques to do it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
very
not sure.
possibly.
Yeah. But pretty impressive.
The Hammers don't venture into these lower mine levels because they're reputed to be haunted. I'd rather not have to do this job, but Cuddy's a reliable fence, and I don't appreciate the Hammerites abducting him. And he owes me money for the Bafford job.
Right, so we get the scepter, and then mission 2 is we have to get the guy who tipped us off on the scepter. Immediately, right at the beginning of level 2, WTF is this game when the zombies showed up.
Yeah, right. So this is one of the things that I didn't really like about it. And apparently it's also one of the things that a lot of community members didn't like about it as well. And apparently in Thief Gold, compared to Thief the Dark Project, there are actually changes that they made,
Oh wow.
where they got rid of some of the supernatural elements and replaced them with humans. I think what I wanted though from Thief was something that was just more good old medieval thieving, right? And not have to worry about, because then when you start putting zombies into the mix, it's kind of like, I don't, because they don't respond like guards,
No.
right? They're not then like, quick, get the other zombies, like, you know. And you can sort of run away from them quite easily, and yeah. So that did actually throw me on the mines one, which is the second one, Clegg's Claft Prison or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And only towards the end of this level, I figured out how to use the map properly.
Oh yeah, that's
Because-
right. Yeah, me too. I think yeah.
Because originally I thought all you get is a map. It's like a drawing, and it's
Yeah.
up to you to use compass to
Yeah,
know
yeah.
where you are. While actually the game tells you, because it fills the section right with a different color.
Yeah,
I did not pick up on that until probably the end of this
I
section.
was probably pretty much the same.
And
What do you think of it?
so this is the mission where I started picking up on certain systemic elements to its game design, because they introduce water arrows, and then when there's a torch on the wall, it took me a little while to pick up that if I shoot an water arrow at it, it's gonna be put off.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. When did you figure that out?
Towards the end of the prison.
Oh, wow. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And this is, I suppose, because like with the torch on the wall, it doesn't like it's very. It's not very high res. Let's just say that. And I didn't pick up on the fact that it's something you could interact with.
Right, yeah.
But then at some point, I get a bit stuck because I didn't know how to proceed. Because again, I think at this level, I realized that I can't kill everything. I have to sneak past enemies because I'm just going to die repeatedly. I haven't got enough. Because melee in this game only is an option if you have healing potions. Or you have
I
a
mean,
secret technique that I
yeah.
figured out later in the game.
Melee shouldn't be an option. I mean, melee is not really supposed to be there. Like, you're supposed to be sneaking
Yeah.
around all the time. It's just for, like, emergencies. You
Yeah.
know? That's what it's for. So, the blackjack is used, just use
Blackjack is used all the time. So I've gone through the caverns, and then I've gone through this like factory section and into the prison, and I was already like depleted on a lot of the resources. So I wouldn't call it stuck, but I definitely had a few rounds, like a classic Dark Souls tactic of running past all the enemies, try and figure out where the hell you're supposed to go.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, that's kind
Yeah.
of the way I thought about doing it at first.
And then, so we got to the person that was supposed to bail out of the prison, and then they die.
If damp hadn't rotted my lungs.
And we get a new objective. And as soon as I had the notification of new objective, I was like, oh no.
It's obviously like really early in the genre, and so people are just basically figuring out how to do all this stuff in terms of level design. I found there's a lot of backtracking in levels. Yeah, and it gets a bit frustrating when you're like, oh god, right, like what? And then some of the objectives they sort of just cancel each other out, right? They just go like, no, and it looks like you failed it. So it looks like you've just gone like, no, you failed, but that's actually part of the story. It's part of the flow of the quest. So yeah, it's a bit odd. I found the voice acting hilarious as well, because all the voice acting is done just by the team, you know.
Clearly.
What's wrong with us?
Well, we're fine. But I've been thinking we should watch the outsides more.
That's stupid. People to worry about there on the inside.
No, then you catch the...
Is someone there? Who are you? Hurry!
Yeah, like which is not unusual for
for that time. No.
At all. And it must have been like really good fun for them to do it. But it's quite funny listening to all. And so like there's one guy who think he's trying to sound sort of like British maybe. I'm pretty sure he's American.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, yeah. So it was kind of fun listening to those voices. I thought they were like it was okay. And then some of the voices, especially the mages, get quite repetitive. But,
Yeah.
Too bad it's not as clear about where the horn is. Felix did some scrounging before he left, and his notes say the horn is in the tomb of some nobles, the Quintus family. Guess I'll just have to explore.
the Horn of Quintus, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
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 And there are no humanoid enemies there. They're all either like zombies, I think, or
Yes.
forex.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And you have to you have to go right up to the top.
Yes.
Yeah.
To get the horn. Yeah.
As a sort of side note to that, to the verticality in the levels, I am really impressed with the rope arrow in Thief. I think that's really, really great. Fantastic. Like, because it's not, and I was trying to think, like, I don't think I've seen like a rope, like a rope mechanic like that in really anything like particularly new. Because what you often have is you have things like grapple hooks, right? You have things like gravel, like guy in Overwatch who does it, right? You can do it, like just and you fire it out, and it drags you towards the point, right? It's like super fast, or like Just Cause, like one of the Just Cause games, which is kind of like a similar thing, where it's like, or Spider-Man, like sort of swinging around stuff, right? But there's something about that rope arrow where because it's quite measured and it's slow and it just hangs down and you're just kind of slowly creeping up it, and I think it's quite impressive for the time. And the fact that you can only use it against wood and apparently grass, although that didn't work some of the time, finding it into grass. But it kind of helped. It helped quite a lot in some of those missions where there were a lot of high points.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you can dislodge the arrow and keep
Yeah.
it is also very cool as well.
Yeah. There was a lot of times I like quick saved and then just like, right, make the jump and then also quick press the use button to grab the arrow.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was fine. I think that mission.
Invest in some new tools. Farkas is one of the few merchants willing to risk selling to an independent like me, and his prices are steep. But the other choice is to let one of the so-called city wardens give me orders and take a cut of my profits. They've been after me for years to join one of their stables, but I'm not interested. Maybe they'll get the idea and give up. More likely, they'll just ramp up the threats.
Assassins is probably my favorite mission.
Oh, yeah?
I think it's my favorite mission. That was the one where, like, I think it's because of the pacing, and maybe because by then, I knew enough about the mechanics of the game, and it seemed to be, it seemed to be tailored towards my level. It was just at that sweet spot of being challenging enough, but not too frustrating. Not too confusing, not too much going around in circles, not too big either, really, I felt. And it's funny because I thought, like, at first I thought the name of the level suggests that you are an assassin, but it's not at all. It's just you got a tail from people who are trying to assassinate you, tempted to. So that was probably my favorite one. This is also when you get introduced to the lock picks.
Oh, right, that's it.
So yeah, it is, which is really cool. Like that was another great thing about Assassins, or just the game in general, is the lockpicks. I think are kind of cool. I just like the way that they're just thinking about those. I really like the fact that they had the whole like 2 lockpick mechanic as well in that. So the different types of lockpick, and you could just try with one or try with the other, and it might work. Or you could try with one, it would half work, and then you had to use the other one.
And let me ask you this about that. How did you find inventory management in this game?
And so at first I was basically just tabbing through everything until I realized, well, A, shift tab exists, which is go back through the item the other way.
I did not know
Right.
that.
But the other yeah, the other major thing is using backspace to clear your inventory, because at times I was like, oh, I want to use this thing, and it's like
Yeah.
quite time critical sometimes. Or you would like, you didn't want to accidentally use like a flash bomb or something when you didn't want to, when you want to just open a door, right? Or something that, or you've just been trying to pick a lock and then you go to the next inventory item and it's something else that you don't want to use and you end up using it. So like clearing the inventory, which is basically the same as going to the end of the inventory and then one more, which is just empty. Press backspace, it goes straight to to clear inventory. So that tab and then shift tab were like the ones. But it's still, I mean, it's not, it's not like it's not ideal. It's like a lot of the stuff, the controls in there that are not ideal.
Let me tell you, I did not know that shift tab exists. I did not know
Yeah.
that backspace exists. And so,
Yeah.
to me, in my eyes, after having played the game, is like people say that in Dark Souls, gravity is the real enemy, is
Yeah.
the real true final boss. In
Yeah.
Thief 1, the real final boss and the real true enemy of the game is scrolling through inventory when you're in the pinch,
Yeah.
and then doors that does not open because you're in the way. Because what happens a lot of the time is
Yeah.
you get up to the door, it's locked. You take your lock pick, and then it's always fucking the second one, and you start picking the lock picks halfway through, and then it wants you to take the other lock pick and finish picking the lock. Mind you, listeners, enemy, because it's a game about sneaking, there may be enemies around and you're kind of in a pinch to do that quickly, right? And then I'm just like, there's so many, like, I'm gonna try my hardest to find examples of that in my playthrough, because there's just so many times where I like panic to like tap through all of the, like, and you accumulate things as well, so you end up with more and more things as you play the level.
Scrolling through a massive inventory, like,
Just
come on.
Yeah, just trying to get the lock pick, and then finally, yes, you pick the lock, and then the door doesn't open because you're in the way, and you step back and you
Yeah.
click on the door manually to open it, and
Yes.
then because you have lock pick, the game tells you, no, you've picked the lock. That's not why are you doing? So you have to go to the. It
Yeah.
was awful.
I think because they're using a use button for everything as well, right? They're
Yeah.
using one button, which is clean. It's just like a clean sort of interface, but like it's not. It sometimes can get in the way, and I like doors in general. Like you know just as well as I do, right? Like doors in game dev is actually hard, right? It's like quite. It's like one of the most surprisingly hard things you can do is make freaking doors, especially when you've got to get like AI to go through them. But just designing for things like, hey, which way is the door going to open? Oh, okay, is it going to open one way? Right. If it's going to open one way, does it have a hinge on one side of the door? Right. So it looks like it's opening properly, because otherwise it's going to look like it's going to clip through if it's a very big door. If it's a very wide door, right, it's going to clip through. And it's like, okay, so if it opens one way, what if it opens in your face? Like, what happens then? Does it just stop? Does it push you out of the way? Does it have no collision on it whatsoever, so it goes straight through you? So that looks also weird. Like, if you opened it and it opens onto some AI, what happens then, right? Does it? And so like, there's so much stuff. Like, and then like, how does AI use doors? It's like a smart object or something. They just walk up to it, they trigger it, and then they wait. And then what happens if it opens the wrong way? Like, going like what? All of this stuff, right? What happens if they open the door but it opens in their face, right? It's like there's so much stuff that's just like, because I found that like picking a door as well, and this is one of the other things I didn't like about the way the lockpicks work, is they instantly open the door.
Which
So they
I
don't.
did like.
You did like, okay, because maybe with time and everything. I guess because wouldn't you'd have to clear your inventory before you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So which I didn't necessarily like because
Well, if there's
you
an
then like,
enemy,
well, there might be someone on the other side, and they just get exposed immediately, right?
yeah. No,
So
yeah.
so it was kind of like so it's kind of an odd one, and they do have like you can tell there's a bunch of stuff like that where it's just like there's also problems like highlighting stuff sometimes, like especially when doors aren't so bad, you highlight a door and it's just like a tint change, it gets rid of the shadows or something, it's just like it's just completely bright. And like enemies, but then an enemy has a purse on them or a key, and you've already knocked them out, and they're unconscious and on the floor, and you're looking around, and you're like, I just want to focus on
Oh my
the
god.
purse or the key, and you can actually
It's
pick them
so
up,
hard.
and then you will get it, but that doesn't always work for some reason, right? Like it doesn't. Whenever you pick them up, it doesn't say, "Oh, well, he's got a thing on him, so you just collect that now,"
Oh,
right?
it never
Sometimes it
worked
does.
for me. I had to pick them up, drop them, pick them up, drop them, pick them up, drop them, try and
Yeah,
like hassle around them to
it's
make.
like
Yeah.
don't. I mean, yeah, and to be honest, like that stuff is not the worst offender, I don't think, in terms of general, you know, movement mechanics or like the general game, like the player's mechanics, right? Because I think probably the worst offender is mantling,
Oh yeah.
possibly. Right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
probably the worst offender is mantling. Right?
Yes. And there's a
I didn't
mission.
realize
Yeah.
until like I literally until like yesterday, the day before, that you could just keep holding space,
Yes. You
right?
can.
You can just keep holding it.
Yeah.
I was like hammering it, like and go like, oh no, I need to jump once and then jump it and then press space again at the right moment. But you didn't have to do that because it would just keep firing at every frame, right? And just be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, okay, you're trying to jump on this thing. So that would have been like so much easier. But even then, you're like, you kind of you get to the edge. You think you're still on the edge. You think on the floor, and you just jump. You make a jump. You're like, nope, straight down, bang. Or like you look at a wall that you jump across to a wall that you think you can mantle up onto, and then you just face plant like straight on the floor. It's just like ridiculous. And and that has a lot to do with I think the way that you know maybe we're accustomed to modern UIs where there's some kind of UI like notification. Maybe it's diegetic, maybe it's not, where it tells you you're near a wall. You can press the
Mhm.
jump button now to jump on mantle button to jump mantle onto the wall, right? Like a little press F to mantle, right? And Thief doesn't have that, but I actually do really like minimal UI, and I do really like when it doesn't hold your hand with that kind of stuff sometimes. But it's just there's a lot of that kind of stuff in Thief where it's like it doesn't stuff that's I like because it doesn't hold your hand, but also it's frustrating because it doesn't hold your hand, right? Like it's become it's like there are some aspects of it where it's just that balance hasn't been quite worked out or quite fully, you know, like play tested, maybe not. I'm sure it's been play tested like a million times, but it's just for me there were certain aspects of it where I was just like, this is just frustrating.
Kill me for trespassing. Finding the vase may prove difficult since I have no idea where it is. Should be a hot topic of conversation among the downwinders. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to overhear where they're stashing it. Time to make a living.
It's a good segue. Talking about frustration, the Thieves Guild.
Oh my god. Jesus Christ. I'm so glad it's a bonus mission. I'm so glad I'm so glad that they were decided they were like, yeah, this one is not like actually I think they were made after because I think the bonus missions were added. They weren't cut missions, I don't
No,
think.
I don't think so.
I think they were made afterwards.
I think so too.
But I don't know whether they were just made for people who were because they were bonus missions. They were made for people who just
I
they
think
thought
they are made to introduce like extra narrative
yeah,
or
yeah.
tidbits of like story, basically.
Yeah, and like world building stuff, right?
Yes.
Because I think because Thieves Guild, which is the one talking about, it doesn't necessarily hook into the main narrative, but it gives you some more world building stuff about the thieves. The concept was cool, right? Break into the place and steal something that's already been stolen, and those two thieves companies are trying to squabble over
Yep.
who should get the spoils, and then therefore where to keep it in the meantime, and all that kind of stuff, like that concept stuff. So then you sneak into their sort of casino, and it's always funny with games like this where it's like sneak into their casino, right? In the dungeon under the casino, and you're like, this is 1998. Like the 3Ds, you can only do so much with detail. It's like, what is a casino gonna look like in the 1998 video game, right? You just you start thinking about how they're gonna lay that out, because it's like it's always a case of like, there's only so many polygons we can push in this, so we're just gonna put like a table with a texture of some cards on it and like a roulette wheel, whatever. But for me, the most frustrating part of that was getting from Ruben's mansion to Donald's mansion, which is using the sewer system and just going round in fucking circles constantly, just constantly. And like, it was just labyrinthine. Like, I was just kind of walking around thinking I'd got to the right exit, and I go, oh no, I'm here again. Like, I'm at this part again. Like, what? Like, I thought, and then you doubt yourself, and you go like, wait, no, maybe that is the right way, because there's some other. And I feel like there was always the problem I had. There was one of the problems I have with this game as well, compared to what a lot of other later games that did things better, like Deus Ex, for example, where you are given like genuine, like quite clearly communicated multiple routes in and out of somewhere. Whereas sometimes in Thief, there's one route out of a specific place or into a specific place, and it's like really obscure or like really well hidden. And you're like, oh man, it was just like round that corner in that dark corner somewhere. And you're like, what? That's crazy. I don't know. I'm assuming you had the same experience.
Yeah, so it's a very long mission, again, for those who haven't played this game. And the thing is that you go, it has almost like thrice the amount of level as some of the previous ones. And and you go through the restaurant, that's it. Yeah, because you start the mission, and then you go around the corner, you get into the restaurant, and then that's like not just a room, that's like a whole like mini level to it. Then you go through into the casino, and then there's multiple levels, vertical levels to it, and certain thing like you have to figure out that you have to press the roulette to open the secret door, which, I mean, it's quite on the nose, but also I don't know if it's explained or not. And then you go out of the casino, you get to the Rubens mansion, which is another mansion, and then you get the key or whatever. It took me probably almost an hour. I've gone through everything to the end of the level. There's nowhere else to go. Where's this fucking vase? And then you realize that you have to backtrack, as you said, to not the very beginning, but almost the very beginning. And then confusing still, you're in the right place. Where's the vase? And you just keep running around that place.
The big thing, yeah.
And then I did not figure. Did you figure out the painting?
Nope. I had to look it up.
I had to look it up.
I had to use a guide from when I was in the middle of the sewers.
Yeah.
Because partly because I could have, again, it's one of those things about time. Like, I probably would have found a way out, but it was getting so frustrating. And I was thinking, like, I'm on like precious time here. I need to get this done so I can move on to the other missions. That was like, screw it, I'll just use a guide, because screw this mission. and then that kicker at the end with the painting, I was just like, what? Like
Yeah.
one of the issues I have with Thief as well is that it often says things like, listen out for the guards talking about something
Yes.
to give you a clue as to what to do, but you can either miss it and it's never stored anywhere, or you could have heard it, saved the level, come back to it a week later and gone like, wait, what did those guys talk about? Like you've completely forgot. So there is no there are no real notes that you can
No.
keep. There's no like log, right? Which I know is a much more modern invention. And I also am aware of the fact that I like the fact again that it comes back to sort of like not hand holding. I actually like that stuff, but it just has to be it has to be balanced quite carefully, and it has to be sort of made sure that it's again it comes down to that fine line between player frustration and challenge, because it especially when you know, this is one of the reasons I liked Assassins. It was really on that level, that point where I just thought like I just kind of know where I need to go. I know I can kind of get the layout of this, I get the lay of the land of this place. And it surprised me because usually, like even by then, level design had established quite far into where people were talking about using light, using points of interest for as waypoint markers, as landmarks, right? For people to using different texture sets for different areas or between floors, so players can just sort of subconsciously distinguish between where they are and like what makes sense and where they're going, and have a good mental map of the place without having to have a map, a literal map, right? And that's why I like Thief's map like that, because it doesn't hold your hand. But it, like Thieves Guild was just on the other end of bonkers for that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, maybe there was a note, because they do give you notes, right? They give you the papyrus scrolls and all those kind of things. So there are notes, but not everything, right? So you can't remember it. If it was an audio clip, like
No.
from a guard's conversation, that won't be saved anywhere.
And in my notes, it says that in this mission, I figured out the secret melee technique.
Oh, really?
Which is dancing around the enemies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just get behind their back. They can't deal with it, and you just
They turn really slowly.
They turn very slowly. You just pummel on them from the back. That strategy carried me through the game big time. But I was so mad when I was like, where is that was? And then I found a YouTube video and I was so mad because I was like, how? Yeah. And I'm sure
it's quite a controversial level, I think, for that
Yes.
reason, for one of that, yeah.
The target is a magical sword, owned by a nobleman and collector named Constantine. Little is known about Constantine except that he is an eccentric new face in the city, and mostly keeps to himself. Victoria says the sword will...
After we get the vase, according to the story, we get approached by this, which I think is the first cutscene that wasn't there for me. We get approached by a lady called Victoria, who is sort of a fixer, if you will, in the world of Thief. And she gives us a gig to steal the sword of like an eccentric guy, Constantine, which is the next mission. And actually, you were talking about the rope arrow before. I think the sword is the mission where I used it for the first time.
Oh, really? For the first time?
For the
All right,
first
okay.
time. Yeah, because
it's an obvious one right at the start of that mission, isn't there?
Yeah, because there's an actual entrance to the mansion, but I have never been there. Because it's exactly what you said. Because when you start the mission, the game directly points you towards like a balcony at the distance. And you naturally go towards there. And then I was like, ooh, why don't I try this rope arrow thingy, and then you can basically skip the first floor probably because you get to the second floor
Yep.
immediately.
And it's so cool. Like I love
Yeah.
that. I love that because it's kind of like it's like climbing up to the balcony, and that really embodies the fantasy. Like if you feel like a thief.
And then you kind of discover that this mansion's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah, it's a bit weird, and it's bonkers, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely bonkers, and this is where this stuff, like all of this stuff, really comes in to play. Like, and you can see some of the, like I said before, where you can see these, these sort of. I want. It's like it's not even fantasy. It's like surrealist.
Yeah.
It's like surrealist fantasy, right? Like um it's Alice in Wonderland fantasy, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of that. But do you remember there's a room where there's a sort of a crossroads, and the corridors go down, shrink down into tiny doors? Did you see that a bit? No?
No.
Oh man, yeah, there was, but you couldn't go through them. At least, and maybe you can by some other means. I was literally thinking like a potion to make you small, which is just straight out of like
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland, right? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
This is the mission where I discovered the superior movement technique, which is basically by jump running, because the physics engine maintains your velocity when you land from the jump, and
right,
if you run and time your jumps, you move like twice as fast.
right, right, yeah.
So that's the only way I was moving, aside from sections when I know enemies were close and I was sneaking around them. I
You
was
like
just
speed running it.
yeah, basically, if you open the speed run for this game, that's what you'll see.
I know you'll see it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then, because especially towards the third story where the sword actually is, there's more like there's a lot more patrol enemies there, and I got myself, I think, in a bad situation where I didn't have healing, and
Hmm.
I was just they were stuck in the loops where I just couldn't sneak past everyone. Like
Uh-huh.
I would sneak past some, and then the last one triggers, and then everyone else comes in. And
Uh-huh.
so I think the last section of this level is just I figured out where the sword was, and I had a safe close to it, and then I just after a few tries I figured out how to get to it, and I jump, grab the sword, and then again, because this mansion's weird and it's got these upside down rooms that go
Uh-huh.
through different floors, I just drop down into like this through a couple of floors towards the exit.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
couldn't figure out
Mm.
the actual good way past everyone.
Yeah, I played it slow, like as normally, but there is a point in that mission where you can actually go. I don't know whether you did, but you can go around. There's another like grassy tunnel, and it comes out all the way on top, looking straight down at the sword. But then I dropped down and sort of like lost. I knocked out the two guards upstairs already, which is actually quite difficult because they were seemed to be like super aware all the time, and then managed to drop down, and then sort of like lost my footing a bit and dropped down to another section accidentally, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, grabbed it, and then I actually went and got some more loot after that. But I think there was a bunch of stuff in there that is kind of like that gets missed that would have benefited from another playthrough, just
Oh yeah.
because there's a load of stuff in there that's just crazy stuff.
Generally, I liked this mission, but
Yeah, I like
I
it.
kind of got myself in a pinch towards the end where I failed to sneak properly and I didn't have enough healing potions, which, by the way, you don't get a lot of in this game.
No, I barely use them.
Oh,
Like, to
well,
be
I
honest.
used everything I've got. I was like
So, and
dry.
I barely used them because I just did did a bunch of scum saving, to be honest.
Yeah, just
But
I mean, same.
yeah. This was the other thing that I should mention before I forget as well, because
Go on.
this just happened to me, and and because I was thinking about it. So I don't know. Did you use quick save and quick load? The shortcut key for quick save is F11. The
Right.
shortcut key for quick load is F12.
Yes.
Now, there's a reason why a lot of quick save and quick load keys are on traditionally were on around F5
Yeah.
for quick save and F9 for quick load. And the reason is because people clearly realized after games like this or others that you kind of need to keep those keys apart, right? Because you can accidentally quick save when you want it to quick load,
Yeah.
and you can quick save in the middle of, for example, falling into a lava pit, which is exactly what happened to me.
What you're talking about happened to me as well. I don't remember which mission it was, but I was carefully like trying to sneak past enemies, and it wasn't quite working out for me. And then I kept reloading and then messing up, reloading, messing up. And I got so frustrated at some point, and as I was getting killed, I clicked on save button instead of load in the menu,
Yeah,
and I saved. So,
yeah.
yeah, that was a
And
bad
there's no
moment.
like confirm,
No.
like that's the thing.
Yeah.
No confirm. Just like, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh, you wanted to do that? Okay, cool. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's your funeral.
The eye that Constantine wants is in the abandoned cathedral of the Hammerites. The cathedral is located in a section of the city that was deserted years ago after some kind of catastrophe. I've heard stories of the incident. Most are wild rumors about hordes of zombies and raging fires. Now that part of the city is walled off, and no one's allowed to
So
go
speaking
in.
of funerals, so we get the sword, and then the game, according to the story, it turns out that Victoria and Constantine were working together, and they were testing us, how
Yes.
good of a thief we are. And then Constantine gives us a mission to retrieve this weird eye artifact from this like a different part of town that's sort of lost to some sort of apocalypse.
The ruins, yeah.
Ruins with monsters, and we have to get into the cathedral and get the eye. So
Yes.
I have very strong opinions about this mission, so I'd like you to go first.
Yeah, I was kind of like, when I played it, I was like, oh god, like it's gonna be zombies again, isn't it? Which I wasn't too stoked about. But I also was kind of like, well, actually, when I played the caves mission last time, the zombies are actually pretty easy to just dodge.
Yeah.
You can just kind of run from them. The Burrick things are kind of annoying because they have that gas cloud thing, and you're like, okay, whatever. There was one section in it though that I think is bugged. If it's not bugged, it's if it's not a technical bug, it's a design bug. It's a design flaw in it, and that is when you open the secret passage to or you're supposed to open the secret passage to the cathedral, right? And you have to go onto that little island in the middle of there's a pool of like a moat of water, and you have to jump onto the island. You fire the fire arrow at the guard, right? If you're not standing on the pedestal and you light the two torches, the door doesn't open.
The game tells you that actually.
Yeah, but the problem is you can't fix that, right? I mean, you may have. I mean, to be honest, I didn't try extinguishing the fires and then standing on it and then trying again. But there is a bunch of stuff like that where it's kind of like, well,
I see what you mean now.
if you don't have fire hours anymore, tough shit,
Sucks
reload.
to be you,
right?
yeah.
Now it turns out there's this level is has only one of two locations where you'll see a fire zombie guy, and he's like a bearded man running around on fire, like in a basement somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you kill him, he drops a fire arrow. Right, apparently.
All right.
So I think it might have been added in gold, and I'm guessing it's because you ran out of fire arrows, Don't worry, you can kill, and he respawns as well, right?
All
So you can
right.
kill this guy, and you can kill him over and over again and get fire arrows, right? Fine, okay, cool. You can do that. It's just a bit like, like it's one of those moments where you just think, hey, should be just some kind of key that you've kept on you or whatever, right? Like rather than using a consumable that you could just have accidentally used too many of already, and then the jump's a little awkward as well, but the rest of the mission, because that was like the end.
Yep.
And then there's that odd puzzle near the end, which is all right actually. I mean, it's just the putting the statues on the plate, the two sections that lower to open the gate at the back. Do you remember? Yeah. It'll right at the end when you're then able to go through and you don't trigger the pressure
Yep.
plate that and all that kind of stuff. The early part of it though, it's kind of weird because like I don't know, it felt a bit.
It just felt a bit clunky.
It felt a little bit purposeless. There was a lot of sections in that level that didn't really seem to serve much of a purpose. I mean, I guess perhaps playing on expert or hard because you have extra objectives, maybe that would have made it. But and again in general, like I didn't really like. I'm not a big fan of the supernatural elements as enemies, really. And then this is another example of when I say it is when you go and see when you find the eye, you have to go around the back of the cathedral and you find the eye, and you kind of like and then they tell you, and then you go, oh, okay, cool. And I thought maybe it wouldn't tell you again, but actually, you can go back up there and it repeats the same conversation. So it's like, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say on it. So I may as well let you go.
I think, okay, so the core of Thief, what it is, sneaking around, stealing valuable items like a horn of Quintus, scepter, the whatever, blah, la 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 la. That's like the core of the game, which
That's the
works
fantasy.
very good, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried, in my opinion, that's how I see it. They've clearly tried to like spice it up and try something different.
Yeah.
Spruce it up a little bit, if you will. And I think that this mission is exactly that, and it's a fail. It's so bad. Because you don't have humanoid enemies. You've got these creatures like Burraks and zombies and all of them, spiders, that you can't take down sneakily. You can kill them, but you can't take them down. There's no.
Well, you can take down. Well, you can blackjack a Burrak, and he will one shot.
Can
You
you?
can one shot. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'd never tried on a spider actually, but you can. They're just really awkward because
they
they're
are
big,
very awkward.
and you don't know
Yes.
like where their hitbox is and everything, and it's kind of like like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like I don't know where their hitbox is.
Yeah, I mean, it's unclear with these supernatural enemies. Yeah, who you can take down, and then, I mean, yes, the premise of the mission is to get the eye, but actually, you don't get the eye. You get you figure out how to get the eye, but then there is a second objective is to loot 750 gold or 700 gold, which is so uninspiring to me. Which again, you're playing on expert, you get this in every mission. Fine.
Yeah.
But like the fact
Because
of the matter is,
you don't feel like you're stealing from someone.
yes, exactly.
That's why
Yes.
Constantine's Mansion and Assassins works well.
Yes.
You feel like you're sneaking around someone's house and you can hear conversations in the background, and you can hear like other people talking about stuff and going on, and you're just creeping around stealing some rich man stuff.
Exactly.
But that's not the case here.
Yes. Whereas
You're
here,
basically
you're
stealing stuff that dropped.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just looting some random shit, running around, weird creatures. I'm all for trying something different and trying to spice things up, but I think that is so badly done in this mission. It's pretty bad.
I just looked at the requirements as well for the difficulty levels. Right, 750 on normal. It's 1,750 on hard, and it's 2,000 on expert.
I mean, that's just, yeah, good luck with that, basically. And again, it comes down to the fact that levels here are, you get lost very easily. I don't know if that was the intention or not, but like, it's gonna take you some time to really get to know a level if you, like, I haven't done, I don't think, ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's gonna make it so much worse. But
That's one of the key points of the game. Is really a lot of it is about map knowledge. A lot of it is about map. Once you have the map knowledge, it's like, you know.
The only cool thing about this level that I can remember that I actually did quite like is that you've come to the point where there's like a river and a bridge that's
Like a drawbridge.
a
Is up.
drawbridge
Yeah. Yeah.
that is
This
up.
been raised. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a window and a button that you can see, so you can shoot an arrow through the window to hit the button, and it will actually work, and the bridge will go down.
What?
That was quite cool. Yeah.
No way. I didn't
Yeah.
even know that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
That is quite cool. And so the premise of the mission is, yeah, there's this eye artifact in the cathedral, and then when we get there, the cathedral is locked by Hammerites, which is one of the factions in the game, because I guess of its supernatural qualities that we learn about later in the game. And then it's locked with 4 keys, which I guess is sort of where we enter the second act of the game, I suppose you could say, where we actually go around finding those 4 keys.
The talisman is likely kept in the Earth Tower, but there's little chance it'll be that simple. No doubt the talisman is heavily guarded and probably protected by magic. But mages love to write everything down.
Yeah, the second act is getting all the keys, and it starts with the Mage Towers, which is another added level to the Gold edition. And this was the one that almost broke me.
Really?
So you spoke about the Thieves Guild being what it is and how long and labyrinthian. And Mage Towers almost broke me. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because I did that level backwards. Because what you're supposed to do is you start outside the sort of the mage quarters, if you will, and you have these 4 towers around it, and you go into the water tower because there was a calamity or whatever, a failed experiment, and it's unlocked. And you go through there, and you get the key to the other tower, and then you go through all 4 of them, and then finally you sort of get the key to the whatever is the library.
The Earth Tower or whatever, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically go through each tower to get the key to a different tower.
Yes, and then at the end you get the key to the place where you actually need to go to get the talisman.
Talisman. Yeah. But then I don't think, as far as I know, as far as I remember, you don't know that until you actually discover it later on in game. So it's another example of like that sort of enforced backtracking, like back along.
Well,
I think you read a scroll or something, or I can't remember, where it's like, oh yeah, we kept the one key, and so yeah, it was a scroll.
Yeah,
it was like a long scroll.
Yeah.
And we kept one key somewhere, and the water tower's been damaged due to some accident with water elementals and stuff. And so yeah, that one's there, and this one's here. So you wouldn't know that, but then again, playing it again, you would just go straight to the water tower. I didn't find it too bad. I didn't find it as bad as Thieves Guild.
Okay.
But then again, I did have to have a sneaky look at a little bit of a guide, because I was like, after I did the main section, and I was like right at the top, and I was on the outside of those doors that only open from the inside. So I'd gone right to the top of the center section, knocked out each of the 2 guards on each one, and then been like, what?
I did the exact same thing, and then so I cleared everything in the central area, and I've gone to the door that I can't open, and I was like, what? And then I looked it up, and then, oh no, you're supposed to go through these 4 towers, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
For
And I thought,
real
because I thought
though?
you're supposed to get to the towers from like there, from the top, right? Because it
Yes.
looked like they were all connected at the top. And you're like, oh well, it must go. Maybe you just go to the top,
Mhm.
and that's probably the only way. And surely you wouldn't just go on the front door from the bottom, right? At least that's what I thought anyway. But no, it turns out that is the way. And then I went all the way to the very top of that tower, and there's that locked door, which is where the Earth Element's behind that locked
Yeah.
door. And I was like trying all the keys that I had already, and I was
Yeah.
like, I've got loads of keys. Like none of these
Yeah.
work, right? Like just kind of ridiculous. But what I did
Imagine me
find in that
scrolling
mission,
through all of those keys every time because I
yeah.
didn't know
Oh
them.
yeah, because then you wouldn't have used Shift Tab, right? What I did find though in that mission is that it was reasonably easy, especially in the gardens levels, to knock
Yeah.
out everybody.
Yes.
Like it was fine, not a problem.
The Keepers have hidden the Talisman of Fire in a place they call the Lost City. Some kind of cataclysm buried the place underground ages ago. The Keepers have sealed the access to the city, a cleft in the river bottom near the east side. If the materials in the library are right, the strange stone I found can be used to open
So
that
in the
seal.
Mage Towers, we get one of the talismans, and then the next level, which is the Lost City, where you get another talisman, is the one that I hated as well.
Right? Yeah.
Because the next level, shit ton of parkour, and
Yeah.
it's, let me tell you, it's not very well realized, which I'm a bit conflicted about, because like making a good climbing or mantling is quite hard. Like technically, it's, and especially 1998, not a lot of like CPU and memory. So because again, now if you want to do a climbing system, there's going to be a bunch of ray casts or even
Mhm.
shape casts to figure out whether you can
Yeah.
climb, and when you climb, whether there's enough space for you to land there.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
couldn't do any of that in
Yeah.
back
Or
then.
the
And
yeah.
so
Or
I,
it just
I can
wasn't
understand why it's as clunky as it is. But then building a level around jumping around and parkouring, which essentially is what the Lost City is, I kind of hated it in a major way, because again, it just was one of those things where they tried to, spice it up, which is correct. Like they had the right idea, but I don't think that having like a parkour level is something that they should have gone with.
I don't think Thief is meant to be a parkour game, but I just played Lost City. I didn't think it was okay. There were certain sections that I did like. There's a point where you have to kind of use. I don't know how else you do it if you don't have a rope arrow, but there's a point where you have to go across a, a chasm. Like there's a door on the other side, and there's literally a straight drop down, and then you've got to use a rope arrow, and then you've got to like. A lot of people put like 3 rope arrows up. You don't need to do that. You can put like 1 up and jump to it,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
jump
Yeah. Yeah.
across again. And that stuff, and it's sort of like Indiana Jones stuff, which is basically what Tomb Raider was trying to do, right?
Yeah.
But I think you're right that it's not very Thief-like, but at least I think it was because of the presence of the mages. I think that level was a bit more because that was one of the levels, like I said, mentioned earlier, that where they replaced some of the
Right.
supernatural elements with more human elements because
Yeah.
of the community feedback. The mages are tough. Well, it's the only thing. But sometimes they spot you like super easily, or sometimes they start doing that casting thing, where they are like, "Oh, I'm going to cast a fireball at you," and then you probably do like what you do, which is just run around the back of them and just
Yeah.
hit them with a sword a bunch of times, and they just sort of like, "Oh," and like turning really, really slowly. So yeah, I yeah, I think I got on with it a bit better, but again, um, yeah, there's too much. There's it is big, and it probably suffers from some of the same problems that you mentioned in the Haunted Cathedral, which was that really your I guess you're looting an Egyptian tomb. It's not quite the same thing.
No.
But
Yeah, I think my fundamental problem is that when you're just looting random stuff versus you're there to steal something valuable, like that's the word, a unique, valuable item. I think that's, for me, that makes a great difference
yeah.
when it comes to like my engagement with doing it.
Yeah. 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 That's why I think, Constantine's sword works really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the tier list. And then this is up to interpretation, I suppose, how you want to do it. But the idea is to build it up as we go.
I would not put it lower than B, but at the same time, I wouldn't put it S. So it's going to be A or B, but I'm actually, honestly, I'm probably going to put it in B, which is odd because because I love these kind of games, right? I love stealth. I'm massive. I've got hundreds of hours in Hitman, and I love Deus Ex and all of those immersive sims. I love Dishonored, which is made by some of the same guys. I think what it is, it's because this is the archetype, right? I think it's because it's the first, almost in the first in a series of or a genre of 3D immersive sim stealth games, and I think it's just finding its feet. Because if you look at Deus Ex, the first Deus Ex that came out 2 years later, in 2000, that was really well. I mean, Thief was really well received, but Deus Ex was really well received. But Deus Ex has a lot more good communication to the player. And to be fair, 2 years of technology has happened since then, but which was a lot. Also, it makes it different to Thief, like some of the later immersive sims, and why they're better is because the alternate paths are communicated better to the player. Like that's one of the major things for me, because I didn't feel like there were a huge amount of options for me in Thief, even if there actually was, because I didn't, and maybe there is if I spend more time on it, and I'm sure there are a bunch of, Thief aficionados who are saying, "Oh my God, you haven't. What are you talking about? You didn't use the rope on the the parapet somewhere, or you could have gone in the sewers, or like it wasn't really obvious to me. Whereas when you look at Deus Ex, it's quite obvious from the start that and it is a bit of a hybrid of an RPG as well, but it's quite obvious from the start where you're picking skills, for example, in electronics or lockpicking or swimming or weapons, and that alone determines your the style that you're going to play, right, and the routes you're going to take. And I don't think that Thief needs something like that, but it's just, I think the layout of it doesn't really lend itself to a lot of alternative options. But it has got great atmosphere, really good atmosphere. And I love some of the mechanics. I love the rope arrow. I love the light and dark mechanics, which was at the time revolutionary, but still people haven't done it that much, really.
I think I agree completely. I would put it in the B tier, and I would probably keep in mind that I want it at the top end of the B tier, I think. Because the game has strong moments, which is what I said last week. The game has strong immersive moments, and the game has a great backbone of sneaking around in someone's house effectively, or something close to it, like Constantine's mansion, like the first mission, like the opera house where you get one of the talismans. Like, that's great. There are immersive sim opportunities with, like you said, light and darkness, and the ability to create darkness when you put off the torches on the wall, things like that. The reason why it's not higher than that is because, so I don't know if all of the supernatural elements is like the leftover from the original formula,
It may well
or
be.
yeah, or is it their attempt to diversify the gameplay, which I think would have been the right idea, but I don't think that's the way. I don't think the execution holds up, because I think the supernatural enemies are out of place. I think the story works fine. I don't have anything against the premise of it, but the realization, I think, is out of place, and I think it just breaks the formula too much. When you were talking about the lack of hand holding, and I was thinking about Dark Souls, because in Soul series, there's notoriously like no hand holding, and there are certain elements that like, how on earth you're gonna figure it out? And then begs the question, why one thing's praised and then the other thing not so much. And I think what it comes down to for me is the fact that Dark Souls is incredibly obscure, but exploring the world of Dark Souls is incredibly rewarding. If you play the game
Yeah.
and attempt to sort of leave no stones unturned, the game is going to reward you with great loot or tidbits of like storytelling and or world building. It's incredibly rewarding. I think Dark Souls is like a textbook game for that kind of stuff in
Yeah.
particular. Whereas
Yeah.
I can't say it for this, which of course isn't a fair comparison because of the time difference. But it's one of the reasons why I wouldn't put it above the high end of the B tier.